All right, midweek pod. Jonathan Lidskin back once again. Week 4 college football is done. Week 3 of the NFL has come and gone. This is two of 3 episodes that we're doing this week on JSP. John, how we doing, buddy?
Jake, we're good. Another interesting week of college football with many takeaways.
Had my third winning week in college football, 13 and 10, off of bets that were down there. Last week's pod NFL, 13 and 3. Best weekend ever. You tailed. You're
Yeah,
very
made me a
happy.
lot of money.
It was a good ride. We're looking to keep it hot. But again, week 4 observations, not overreactions. We're making observations. It's still very early. But first, as always, I can't believe I saw this happen recently. John,
So
start us
I'll
off.
start. I'll start like usual, and I think like when and this was today. What my observ or my I can't believe this happened today. So I went into the studio today for my college basketball show, which I do every week with our dear friend David Campbell,
Dave,
and
friend
I
of the
went in
pod,
about
David Campbell.
I went in about 30 minutes early and I went into one of the side studios because I was doing an interview with a coach for our Big Ten preview. And I, I do the interview, started at 12:30, it lasts till about 12:42. So I come out of the studio and I have about like an 8-minute gap until David gets there between the interview and then when David will get to the studio. When I walked out of the side studio, there were these guys in the music room just like playing instruments and like it's like kind of like kind of free flowing and doing whatever. And I don't know if they were practicing or whatnot, but I'm sitting there and the one of the guys walks out of the studio that they're playing instruments in and is just making like this absurd beat with his mouth from the song that they were just playing, and he walks right past me like without even realizing that I'm sitting there laughing at him. And I just like couldn't believe that like he was just so oblivious to me sitting there.
That's a good one. You gotta love that. All right, mine actually has something to do with football. Something that we saw this week. Something we haven't even talked about because I didn't even know it happened on Saturday. I was scrolling through Twitter earlier yesterday, and I once I saw it, I didn't want to tell you because I knew that I was going to use this uh,
Mhm.
on the show, and I didn't really know. I had no idea it happened in college football on Saturday, so I went back watched some of the game. I was like, "Holy shit, this actually was real." We go to SMU. SMU's playing TCU. I was on TCU. They basically blew them out. And you know how Texas is. If you're having a field that's unable to play in Texas heat is like having a field in Washington or Seattle that can't play in the rain. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
so yeah. Apparently, the play clock at the stadium at SMU wasn't working for like 70% of the game, and nobody was talking about it. Max Duggan took like 4 delay games because he had no idea how much fucking time was left in the play clock, and I'm scrolling through Twitter, and people are just ripping on SMU. Someone said, "It's so hot in Dallas that the play clock at SMU stopped working. SMU can't afford a play clock. The TCU SMU play clock overheated." So that's apparently what it was, is that the play clock overheated. So apparently, the field that they were playing in Texas couldn't withstand the heat, which is the same thing as playing a game in Seattle, and it can't withstand the rain.
I
So
like I didn't even know that that was like possible. Like I'm like trying to envision it's something like if you leave your phone out like in the sun and it gets really hot, you have to like bring it inside or into the shade until it gets cool enough where it lets you use it again. Like I didn't even know that was possible.
yeah, so I'm looking at a screenshot right now where they're coming back from break, and it says play clock not working, parentheses overheated. The weather is 90 degrees and it feels like 100. This was at Gerald Ford Stadium in Dallas, the home of the SMU Mustangs. And I went back and watched some of the game, and the players were pissed, especially the guys on TCU.
Yeah, and
Um,
like rightfully so. And like that's just weird because like I hate to break it to you, but like there have been games in college football before where the field temperature was over 100, and I've
yeah,
seen no clock problems.
yeah. All right. Observations for the third consecutive week. I want to start with one of the 11 a.m. game or 12 p.m. games. 11 a.m. for us. We'll talk about two of them because there were some interesting early games. I'll start with the one at the big house, Michigan, Maryland. Michigan struggled to put the Terps away.
Mhm.
Maryland kept fighting back. Michigan always had they had the game under control. They got that big play before halftime, the big touchdown. They were always in control, but Maryland's a frisky bunch. Do, do we think this is more about the Terps or some doubts about Harbaugh's squad that we didn't otherwise know about the first 3 weeks as they didn't play anybody?
I think it's more about Maryland, and, like, if you look at who Maryland has on their roster, it's obviously not as good as Michigan, and honestly, like it's even bottom half level of the Big Ten. But they are really good at some key positions. And I will say Maryland has two wide receivers that are better or at least more talented recruiting wise than any receiver that Michigan could put on the field. So they do have some offensive talent, and obviously they have one of the four best quarterbacks in the Big Ten. So I always thought that I did think Michigan was going to win this game easily. So what Maryland did, keeping it close, surprised me. But in hindsight, I can see why they kept this close. For Michigan, like I think it's going to be the worst game that JJ McCarthy plays the rest of the year. I thought the play calling in the first half wasn't particularly very good. They kind of went back to their old, just like we're going to be a Mack truck and run you over and take all these short throws. And I didn't really feel like they did a great job of getting JJ in rhythm, and that was pretty evident when he missed a couple big throws. I think that gets corrected next week or very quickly, and they're back to hitting these big explosive plays that we expect this year's Michigan's
Yeah,
offense to do.
I agree. Look, it's one game. Can't take much of one game. Maryland was very prepared. Now Maryland hosts Michigan State. We will talk about that game. Hint, hint. We'll talk about that game. But Michigan's a very good team. They're the top of that second tier with the upside to beat one of the three better teams. So
Mhm.
I'm in agreement with you. The explosiveness will come back. It was their first game against a real team and against a team that was clearly prepared. All right, ACC.
Also real quick,
Go
Blake
ahead.
Corum is amazing, and he's like gonna break Big Ten
Yeah,
rushing records this year.
yeah. He's. I feel like they always have someone, and here he is.
Yeah,
Yeah. So ACC, Clemson, Wake. First time in years that this has been a close game. Ends up going to overtime. Clemson squeaks one out. This is I thought this was really good for Clemson. I don't remember who said it, but I was listening to something and they were saying that this was really good for DJ because Clemson needed to have a game where they needed offense and DJ came to play and they won the game because of DJ, because of
yeah.
the way he played. I feel like this is like a momentum swinging, not season changing because they're very good. We all know they're very good. But this is huge for them for the end of the season because okay, we've seen it now. It's not just, "Oh, but he was so good in that Notre Dame game. When is it going to come back?" No, it's here. He's playing really, really well. They still have a little bit of things to figure out. Everybody does, but against a tight, nitty group of Demon Deacons, uh, they squeak it out because of the quarterback play and because of the offense for the first time all season.
Yeah, I think one of my biggest regrets when I look back at my preseason predictions for college football this year is honestly like something that I got right. Like I said in the offseason that DJ was going to have a good year. And like he had way too much talent to not put it together at some point. And we saw that this week. His arm's incredible. Like he just understood the concept this week of like putting the ball in the right spot and the matchup advantages that he could take advantage of. I mean, this was his best game as a Clemson Tiger. I think he played better this week than he did in that Notre Dame game 2 years ago. And looking at it from a team standpoint, if I'm Dabo Sweeney, I'm happier that we won this game 51-45 than winning it 17-13 because we know that Clemson could win that way. And I think that Clemson's corners will be just fine. This is probably the most complicated offense that they'll face in the rest of the regular season. In honestly, even until like the playoff, like Ohio State will be like the most complicated offense they could face later in this year besides Wake Forest. I do want to give some Wake Forest some credit. That was really impressive what they did, and not only like were they scoring with them, but their pass rush was particularly good, and DJ did a good job of recognizing that and just getting the ball out. So Wake Forest, very impressive. Think they could probably be the second best team in the ACC this year if they win those key games in the Atlantic. And Clemson, honestly, even more impressive that they were able to win the game the way they did.
Another observation. I think this Ohio State offense clearly best in the country. They're top. It's gonna carry them the distance.
Yeah,
I think if you ask me right now, of the 3 teams, Ohio State, Alabama, and Georgia. Now we're gonna get to our top 12, after this, but, I don't have Ohio State number 1 or number 2, but I think if you ask me which of those 3 teams, Bama, Georgia, and Ohio State, have the best chance of running the table and going 12 and 0, and maybe getting the 1 seed,
yeah.
it's Ohio State.
Ohio State's got the easiest schedule of the three. I agree there, even though they do have to play Michigan at the end of the season. But like, yeah, I mean they have the best offense in the country right now, and that's without Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah.
So it's only going to get better. But at the same time, like I know Joel Klatt keeps talking about like they've fixed their defense, like it's good. I don't think they have. I don't think their defense is fixed. I think it's looks better than it has last year, but they haven't played the offenses that they had last year. So that's a wait and see for me.
How in the world does USC keep doing this? Now, they didn't get outplayed. Oregon State
No,
Oregon State didn't outplay them. Oregon State kind of was they played the, "Okay, we're gonna let you get everything underneath and force you to make a mistake," and it was getting to Caleb Williams, but what they did, and this was really smart from Lincoln Riley, and I don't remember the last time we've seen this from him. They just stopped throwing the ball, and they ran it down their throats. I think they averaged about 6 yards a carry as a team. They outrushed Oregon State. We didn't think that was gonna happen. Um,
no, Travis Dye with 7 yards a carry.
and they gashed them, and they played a different brand of football. The turnover luck still is in there, and this is what's because we thought, okay, can they go 2-0 in the Fresno game and Oregon State game? Fresno State game was a blowout, but not really because Hayner went down. And this one was okay. If they're gonna lose, it's gonna come right now. And they switched it up. They played a different brand of football, and that impressed me more than a lot of things did this week. Even though they didn't score many points, is that they played I love when college football teams play a different brand of football in the same game, and they did when, they couldn't get anything deep. I feel like that's gonna be a trend with USC down the stretch this season, but they can run the football. They've done it in multiple games.
Hmm.
Very impressive win in Corvallis when it seems like it seemed like a lot of stuff wasn't going their way, even though they got the turnover luck, which eventually is gonna change.
Yeah, and like
Dreading it, but very impressive from Lincoln Riley's team.
I think Lincoln Riley is like this is like the reason he brought in Travis Dye. Like
Yeah.
he is very like people like misunderstand what Lincoln Riley does. His offense is actually like very run heavy at times, and it was at Oklahoma. Now I don't think he has like a run first team at USC. Like I think this is legitimately like let Caleb go make plays, but at the same time, like he has multiple levels of offense that he can go to. And I think you're absolutely right that like it was so necessary to run the football in this game against a team that was just making Caleb uncomfortable. And they made the adjustment. And like that's something that Lincoln does very well is make adjustments. Granted, like Oregon State had 325 total yards of offense. They should have had more than 14 points in this game.
Yeah.
But you know, USC's not going to complain. They turned him over 4 times. Like at some point, like the luck will change, but Oregon State also has to, like, and just teams in general, like they gotta stop turning it over when you have opportunities against these guys.
Yeah, we can break it down with the stats. Obviously, we can use EPA, but not really because Oregon State turned the ball over. Um, is this right? 6 times? It's not right. Not they
No,
didn't turn over
four.
6
They had
times.
4 turnovers in this game.
Okay, I don't this site says 6. That can't be right. So 4. Yeah, that's a lot. So obviously the
M-
EPA is gonna go
Maybe they
down.
count turnovers on downs or something like that.
Maybe. But yeah, this game was low scoring simply because of field position. Both teams starting less than the 25, but USC held Oregon State to 5.1 yards per play, a 38% success rate. an average EPA per rush, below average yards per drop back. Very good defensive performance, plus the turnovers. Very impressive down to down on the road, and they
Mhm.
played a different brand of football, so that was really good to see. Lincoln Riley's former staff, they lose this game at least 2 of every 3 years, it seems like. Um, Lincoln Riley's out, in comes Venables, and he loses to K-State again. Trap game all the way. K-State they lost to Tulane the week prior, but they had Oklahoma on their minds. They wanted to win this game, and they did, and they looked really good. And Oklahoma wasn't as bad as the final score says. They had a chance to win that game the whole way. They kind of played the same game as Kansas State. It just some stuff didn't go their way. Not dropping Oklahoma a crazy amount for this game. They're
Yeah,
still very good, but
I'm not either,
K-State,
but it
Martinez, how about it?
yeah, I mean, I know Harrison said the other night that he kinda won the Scott Frost divorce, or at least it's safe to say it.
I would hope so.
Yeah, I mean,
After
he
this
not only
game.
won the Nebraska divorce, but he took all of Scott Frost's possessions with him. So, there's that, but here's the thing, and I was thinking about this game today more of like a landscape Big 12 picture. We are going into week 5, which means that with the 9 conference games in the Big 12, you play everybody, it's round robin. Every team in the Big 12, unless you've had a bye already, which is an early bye, unless you've had a bye, you've played a Big 12 conference game. After this week, I think the only teams that haven't played a Big 12 conference game are Oklahoma State and TCU because they both had early byes. But those two teams are going to play this week. We are entering the 5th week of the season. Once this week is over, 4 of the 5 teams that we said in the preseason were contenders for the Big 12 title are
All
going
of
to have a conference loss. Crazy. It's like I think maybe 3 of 5 because not Kansas State, but Oklahoma has lost. Texas has lost. Baylor and Oklahoma State play each other this week, so one of them has to lose. And then we have Kansas State, who many considered to be like kind of like the start of the second tier in this conference. This is gonna be a crazy year in the Big 12. Everybody can, I'd say almost everyone can beat everyone on pretty much any given night, and Kansas State going to Norman and winning shows just that.
Yeah, obviously Texas out with 2 losses in terms of the playoff race. I still
Mhm.
think that they're the best team in the Big 12, and I think they're gonna
Yeah,
win
I
it.
think they're close. It's Oklahoma or them for me.
Yeah, and I think we kinda pointed it this year where this year they're probably not gonna get a playoff team just because of how close it is, and it is gonna be close, and it's gonna be even closer than we thought, which is fun because there's a lot of good teams. It's a lot of good football, and I feel like 5 years ago, if we saw the Big 12 what it was this year, we'd be like, "Oh my god, that's awesome," instead of all these games that were 70 to 67, and this is good football. Really well coached teams, lots of talent everywhere, doing a lot of trying to win a lot of different ways, and I think it's the most competitive conference right now, and it's fun.
Yeah, and the thing with Texas is like this is actually something that you and I both said in the preseason. Like, I don't understand why these teams that play non-conference games, Big 10, Pac-12, and Big 12. I don't understand why they schedule these super hard non-conference matchups because going 10 and 0 and running the table in a not 9 game league is pretty much impossible unless you're a generational team.
Right.
So that's why I didn't critique Michigan for playing the non-con they did. That's why I didn't critique Minnesota playing the non-con they did. It's really hard to get to the playoff when you schedule a really hard non-conference game. Of course, unless you win it, which somebody has to.
Is there a return game next year,
Yeah,
Texas and Bama?
it's in Alabama next season,
So
and
that's obviously tough.
yeah, the
I
SEC and the SEC didn't make them cancel it because I don't anticipate. I guess they don't anticipate um Texas and Oklahoma in the league next year.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, but you you could argue 3 years from now that the measuring stick game is gonna be very beneficial to them as a
Yeah,
program if Sark is the guy long term, which I think we both think he is, even though I'm still pro Tom Herman, but we gotta move on, right?
yeah, I think they'll be fine. Like, they were up 2 touchdowns in this game, so like here's where we're at right now. You were up 2 touchdowns of this game. You lost the game in
You're talking
overtime.
about Texas Tech, we're moving on to that, Texas Tech.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So You're up 2 touchdowns, you're up 31-17, I believe, in the 4th quarter.
Yeah.
You go and like, Texas Tech comes back, credit to them, and Texas loses the game in overtime. Here's where we were at last year. Oklahoma comes back, beats Texas in Red River. Texas Tech now comes back and beats Texas. Sark can't let this spiral now. He can't let it spiral. They got the and West Virginia is the worst team in the Big 12. They got to rebound this week in a big way.
See down there? Texas minus 9.5. Got it before it
Mhm.
got to 10, 10.5.
Yeah,
Like that.
West Virginia's terrible. Like they are
They're not good.
far and away the worst team in this conference.
Yeah. They're not any good.
So
And it's crazy to think that they almost beat
they
Pitt.
need to go out and just dominate this week.
Yep. Ewers dressed last week. He might be active. I haven't heard anything. I haven't seen
Yeah,
anything
and it'd be nice to see him get at least some
before
like
Oklahoma. Yeah.
some game experience before Red River.
That's and is that next week? Do they have a bye or
Yeah, it's
that's
week
next
6.
week?
Week 6.
Interesting. So we hope, if it's a blowout, he at least gets a series if Card starts or if Ewer starts. If it turns into a blowout, get his ass out of there. But I agree with you. Missing any time before a big game is, you're walking the tightrope there. So I agree. But I do think it's a great spot for Texas at minus 9.5 at home. I think they're at home against West Virginia.
They are, I believe.
All right, SEC. Two marquee games this past week. I think one of them went kinda how we expected. Tennessee, Florida. Tennessee, better
Yeah,
team at home. Florida gave them a run, had a lead at one point. Great bounce back for Richardson. We saw the ups and the downs inside of one game. I think this was a full, "Okay, this is who he is" game where he's not missing easy throws, but he's also not the reincarnation of Superman.
Cam
But he
Newton.
but he's very good. He's very, very good,
Mhm.
and he put his team in position for a chance to win this game. But the story is Hooker and how awesome this offense is schemed for him. I don't know if he's a pro quarterback. I've talked to some people who have him as high as QB3. Not sure if I'm going to get there, but an
Mhm.
unbelievable college quarterback. One of the
He is a
best.
Heisman contender right now. Absolutely.
Correct. One of the best head coach quarterback tandems in college football. Defense has their issues.
Yeah.
They're
I mean,
one
they
of
gave
the
up almost 600 yards against Florida.
yeah. So a couple of weird turnovers in this game. It was about even in terms of that. Tennessee wins at home by 5. What do you kind of take away from this game? I don't think there was much other than both these quarterbacks are really really good, and Tennessee's better because they're more polished and they're here.
So Tennessee every year, their one downside is they're one of 2 teams in the SEC every single year that has to play both Alabama and Georgia. That's their crossover game. They have to go to Georgia this year, but they do get Alabama at home. I think Tennessee this year, if they want to be this like 10-9 win team that people think they can be or what they look like they can be, their defense just has to be bend don't break. Like if you look at the numbers in this game, sure they gave up almost 600 yards, but Florida was 7 of 15 on third down. So they almost converted half of their third downs. Not awful on Tennessee's part because like eventually like those third downs like you're not going to continue to get them and you're going to hold them to field goals. But Florida was 5 of 6 on fourth down. Almost every time they went for it on fourth down, they got it. So Tennessee is just like they need to figure out a way to either keep the offense at long enough distances on third down that it's not easy to pick up, or and keep them at long enough distances on third down that if they don't get it, they are forced to kick field goal because fourth down's not short enough. There's a lot of issues on defense that they have to clean up here. They're going to give up yards. They're just going to have to accept that. But it's about keeping teams out of the end zone when they get into the red zone, holding teams to field goals, stuff like that. That will give Tennessee the chance to compete with these elite teams.
How much better is this Tennessee team than last year's Ole Miss team?
Um, I actually don't think they're better. They're probably about the same. They have a tougher schedule than Ole Miss did last year, which obviously will hurt them. But I mean, Ole Miss, I think, actually was like very good defensively at points last year, and this Tennessee team probably won't ever be that. So I'm like, if those two are compared, I'd give the edge to Ole Miss. But I also think it's extremely important because Tennessee hasn't been this good in like what like since like the BCS like early BCS days. So like I think it's important that they have their bye this week because they start the season, they win a road game at Pitt, they win this huge emotional game against Florida, who's their rival.
Yeah,
Now they get to reset before the LSU game. All the emotions come down, and they get to focus.
I agree. I have them pretty high, deservingly so, in the top 10.
Mhm.
Do you think they're the favorite to make the Sugar Bowl? Because we expect Bama and Georgia to be in the playoff. Is there any doubt that they're the favorite to make the Sugar Bowl? Or
Um,
is the schedule gonna bite them?
so I think,
Or are
and
we still on the LSU train?
so Tennessee is the favorite right now,
Right.
obviously. It's gonna I think if I had to put money on it, winner of the Sugar Bowl, um, representative is the winner of the Tennessee LSU game next week.
We're still on that train. You
Yeah,
look at
dude,
any Sagarin,
FPI both have him in the top 10.
Connolly's rankings,
Mhm.
Steele's rankings. LSU's in the top 15 in all of them.
Dude, they're
They're a good ass. They're a good ass football team.
they
We
also, like, are, like, one of the 5, if not 3 best defenses in the country. They I know they played New Mexico this weekend or last weekend, I guess, but they give up 2 first downs in the game. They played more quarters in the game than they give up first downs.
So I think it's always important to rewind and see, okay, where did we go wrong evaluating an individual game? And we were so emotional after the LSU Florida State, and not just because, we love LSU and all this stuff and we lost. But there was so much going through our head. We had so much that we wanted to say, wanted to take away. But I think we were thinking in the complete wrong direction. We were thinking, are either of these teams like good? And they're both Florida State and LSU are both really, really good teams.
See, like, I never said that because it was so easy watching that game to just, like, ID talent. Like, if you go back and watch that game, like, even, like, even in hindsight, like, knowing what you know now about both teams, like, if you go watch that game and you watch Jared Verse and you watch this FSU secondary and you watch just, like, these FSU receivers, Johnny Wilson, like, all these guys that they brought in and have
Pittman.
developed, like, these are like, they have NFL players on the field, and, like, I think that preseason rankings just played a huge part of like us watching this game because we were watching it thinking like, oh, but it's such a struggle for both these teams to move the ball. Like
And looking back on it now, we're like, no shit, no shit.
these defensive lines are both dominating, and we're like looking back at it, like yeah, no kidding, defensive lines were dominating. Like these defensive lines both have NFL players.
They're very good. So the Sugar Bowl, I think, is always is an interesting race this year for sure because a lot of those teams, those
Yeah,
mid-tier SEC
Miss
teams, they're
kind of
really
had it
good.
the
They
Ole Miss
play each
kind of had
other.
it the entire way last year.
Right.
'Cause,
Right.
like, Kentucky was in there, but, like, nobody really thought they were that good, and they're not really good again, so
All right. Here's a team that won't make the Sugar Bowl. They A&M, even though they won, they didn't deserve to win again for the second consecutive week. I think their post-game win expectancy against Arkansas, I think it was 19%. It was something like that.
so you did your NFL tiers this week, and one of your tiers was, "How are you not 0 and 3?" That's how I feel with A&M right now. Like, how is this team not 1 and 3? They've been outplayed severely in 3 games.
I think it kinda balanced out because they kinda outplayed App State. They shoulda won that game.
Kind of,
So
like
it's just been like a reverse Uno of a season so far, and it's because, well, no shit, because 'cause they're not any good. Like,
but, like, here's the thing, like, you go like I think that like being outplayed it has a different meaning in like a lot of games. Like A&M may have played App State, but outplayed App State, but like they didn't move the ball. So like I really don't feel that bad for them.
yeah. I don't think they're any good. Arkansas is still very good.
Yeah, I'm
That
not worried
that
about them.
that fumble or whatever the hell happened where
It was a
they
bad decision.
14-point swing, I was and we got a great Joe Test call. I mean, that was awesome, but you guys
He's
were on Arkansas. See, I was rooting for the over, so I was fine with it as long as they scored because Arkansas was going in for the score, and they
yeah.
turned it over, and I was like, "Shit," but then they brought it back, so I got my 7 points, so I was fine, but I know you guys were on you were on Arkansas. I wanted Arkansas to win the game, and they came just well, they missed a field goal, so it happens. There was a play that 14 points were decided. 14 It was a 14-point flip, and then they missed a game-winning field goal. So you'll lose games if
By the
both those
way,
things happen.
I
It
heard
happens.
something this week and I'm not sure how true it is because like I don't freaking know this. Are NFL field goal posts like smaller than college ones?
I don't know. I don't think so.
because I heard somebody say that earlier this week on the air actually here, and like it's a person who I would think like if he's saying it like it's probably true.
Maybe, maybe. I have no idea. But let's go to our top 12. Um, I have new number one team. I've wanted to put at number one the whole year. Bama's back as number one.
They are for me as well.
The overreaction, I think, are done. We got our Georgia time. They're very good. It doesn't matter because they're gonna play each other
Yeah.
as two undefeated teams, I would imagine. But this isn't just because Georgia struggled with Kent State. It's because I had Bama number one all throughout, and a little bit of an overreaction. They were in timeout, but they're back. They're out of timeout for me.
And it like Alabama's been playing great, right? And so like credit to them. But also like I think I told you this earlier this week. Kent State had 5.4 yards of play against Georgia, and Texas had 5.5 yards of play a couple weeks ago against Bama. Like, like people will like. I've listened to people talk about this Georgia Kent State game this week, and like people will tell you like the gap was really big, and like yeah, Georgia played bad, but like their overall body of work was good. Like Georgia didn't just play bad; they played awful. Like this was so uncharacteristic for them, and like is it an outlier? Sure, but like at some point, like
It's
you
time for
have
their
to,
timeout. We gave Bama a timeout. Georgia's getting a timeout.
yeah, and like these two may like flip back and forth
Right,
at
but it
least
doesn't
like in
matter.
like
It doesn't matter.
in analytical polls all year. Like now, like I now that Georgia is number one, like did you see like the amount of first place votes they got this week?
Mm-mm.
I want to say like let me pull this up. I want to say Georgia got like 95% of the first place votes, and like Bama and Ohio State both got two, which I found a little weird. I'm pulling it up right now. Georgia got 55 first place votes. Bama and Ohio State each got four this week. Like
Come on.
that just like doesn't indicate like what's been happening on the field.
Yeah, it's I don't understand the punishment that we're still giving Alabama for how they played against Texas.
Mhm,
Like we're still doing it, and I think the timeout phrase, the timeout saying is realistic. We gave them a timeout. They picked it up. They're
mhm.
fine, and now it's time for us to give Georgia a timeout. But they're gonna play, so it doesn't really matter. 3-4. Do you have Michigan over Ohio State, or you have Ohio State over Michigan?
No, Ohio State's done enough to move up ahead of them.
Yeah. Most power ratings indicate Ohio State's 10 points better than Michigan. I agree. This isn't gonna change. I
A
don't care
lot
what
of
happens.
power ratings actually have Ohio State above Georgia right now.
I've seen a few do, but I'm saying the point differential. It's the 1, 2, and 3 is within like 2 points, and then Michigan's like 10 points below.
Yeah, no, and like that's understandable, but like at the same time, I still think like when those two teams actually like play on the field, like it's it's not like those teams are different when they actually play.
Yeah,
Like it's I hate to use the like the term like throw out the records like kind of game, but like because like it's such a casual statement, but like with those two teams, like I have like and because Ohio State's dominated for the last like decade and in this rivalry, but like there have been bad Michigan teams, and like when I say bad, I mean like much worse than Ohio State teams that have like came out and like had leads against them. Like 2017, Michigan was terrible. They went like 8-5, and which is really bad for their standards. And they were starting John O'Corn at quarterback. They had a lead with against Ohio State in the fourth quarter, and that was an Ohio State team that nearly made the playoff. So
power ratings don't really take that into account though. It's based on just what the
no,
line
no,
tells
I
you.
just it's. I mean, I
Yeah,
still think Michigan has a great chance to beat them. It's just an opinion I
yeah.
have.
So 5, 6, 7. This is where we were a little bit different last week. Oklahoma dropped out for me just because
Yeah, they had to.
got to see it. Like blowing at Nebraska doesn't. You haven't really seen it. I haven't really seen it from Oklahoma. I have SC, Clemson, and Utah 5, 6, 7. Tennessee at 8. That's my second tier.
I
Those are
have.
my like all right. New Year's 6. The SC Clemson maybe playoff. Um, Clemson's still my playoff team. Clemson and USC are both in my
Yeah,
playoff,
we
but I didn't have
we
yeah.
we differ on one major thing here, and that's my 5, 6, 7, 8 is Clemson 5, Utah 6, Minnesota 7, and USC 8. And I know and I understand why people don't want to jump on this yet because they really haven't played anyone good. But like I think I saw they've outscored teams like 190 to like 24 or something like that in 4 games. Like what they've done to this point is just absurd.
Yeah, there's a certain
They've
scale that
they've
you can
done
look at.
they've
Like, we
done
know Minnesota's good.
yeah
Like,
they've
there's
done the way they've played to this point would like if Bama was playing this way against against Minnesota's schedule, like everyone would say like yeah, like this is what Bama's supposed to do. Well, like because Minnesota's just not getting the credit because they're not a name brand, but they've come out and just absolutely dominated everybody
they have so many returners. They have so many veterans. It's ridiculous.
and good returners. That's the key.
Yeah.
Good
I
returner.
I have them at 9, so I'm not that far off. Tennessee 8, Minnesota 9, Ole Miss 10. No losses between those 2 teams.
Hmm.
Kalen DeBoer's Huskies, Washington 11. And then I, stuck with because I had them in it last week. I have Penn State at 12.
I have Tennessee at 9 after USC, Penn State at 10, Washington 11, Oklahoma 12. I want to give some credit to how teams have played so far, and Washington has played maybe better than anybody in the country against the teams that they've played. Like they go out and just dominate Michigan State, and then they look really good again against Stanford. So I think they're going to be pretty hard to stop throughout the Pac-12 play. And I told you that they should be undefeated going into the Oregon game if they can take care of UCLA this week.
Washington -3 right down there. I don't think UCLA hasn't played anybody. There's adjusted rankings based on
And they just
like,
haven't looked good.
opponent adjusted. UCLA is in the, they're not in the top 70 in terms of all FBS in schedule adjusted EPA. Washington's very good, and there's no home field for UCLA. They play in a big ass stadium. There's no home field. Friday night, it might be decently packed, but it never
Mhm.
is. Uh,
No, they
it's
never fill it.
hot. It's hot. DTR is playing outstanding, but this is a team that almost lost to South Alabama. Haven't they killed Colorado, but who doesn't kill Colorado at this point? Um, they're not very good.
And they didn't look great in the first half. So, like they just haven't played up to their potential yet, and Washington's going to take right advantage of that.
Yep. All right, dog of the week. What was yours last week?
Washington State against Oregon.
Oh, Oh, that's right. I had the clip because I had Texas Tech. You immediately said Washington State, and I was gonna post the clip, and like we both hit our dog of the week, touchdown dogs. And that Washington State game was just it was a double backdoor cover. How did Oregon end up even covering that game? You didn't even get the cover lids. That's brutal.
Washington State?
Yeah, Oregon covered.
No, they didn't.
Wait, sorry. It was a double backdoor for Washington
Oregon
State.
had the pick
That's
six,
right.
and it
That's
looked
right.
like they were going to cover, but Washington State went down and scored.
Right, okay, it was the double backdoor for Washington.
Yeah, just
True. Alright,
bonkers.
Lids, what's your dog of the week? Let me
Yeah, I
hear it.
told you that you and I weren't going to have the same one, and even though you said you thought that we were going to, and this is a spread that I was just looking through, and I saw it, and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense based on like what what people are making out these teams to be, and so my dog of the week is Illinois +7 at Wisconsin. I don't think Wisconsin's very good. I think Illinois looked particularly impressive. I know they slipped up against Indiana to start conference play. It was a Friday night,
Through
week
that game.
one. Illinois had played already in week 0, so they had to go play again. And like based on like what people think these programs are, it just doesn't make any sense to me that the spread's only a touchdown or 7 points.
Yeah. Okay. So you get yours, the Fighting Illini. You're gonna hate mine. It's been trickling down there for the whole show. There is a money line there. Uh,
Michigan
I
State.
I'm taking the Spartans, +7.5 on the road against the Terps. Something has to click for this Spartans team. First of all, it's a lot of points, so I love the 7.5. I'll take that to the bank all day long.
You're getting the hook.
But we get in the hook there, 7.5 on the road. Don't care about on the road. This is a veteran team, lots of talent. I think they're well coached. I think they're well coached. They've gotta get the run game going. They will. Maryland is not good against the run. They got gashed for 6 yards a clip against both SMU and Michigan.
Corum had
Uh,
243 yards and 4 touchdowns against him.
Michigan State's gonna control this game. It's gonna be very close down to the wire. The 7.5 is never gonna be in doubt. And then in the 4th quarter, I get the better coach, more talent, a more veteran team, a better defense, and I'll take the Spartans
Th
outright. They're
this is
super
gonna be a
lucky.
game this is gonna be a game, and I just, like, can sense it. Like, Michigan State, what they're gonna do is they're gonna average, like, 5.5 yards a carry, and, like, they're gonna have these drives of, like, 4.5, probably 5, 6 minutes to get down the field, and they'll score, and it'll look easy, but it'll take a while. And then Maryland's just gonna throw the ball and score, like, in 3 plays every time. So, it's gonna be a really interesting game.
So I love the 7.5. I'll take the money line too. I think it's like plus 270 is what I got it at. So very juicy. Had a couple of I hit on Texas Tech. I had Florida. Those are my two underdog dogs in college football. Went 3 for 4 on underdogs money lines in the NFL this week.
Yeah.
So that was awesome. Have some that we'll give out. Actually, none of these are. One of them is dog. We have one dog so far. Let's go to the NFL. Observations. Where do you want to start, John? Where should we start?
Ja the
What's an
Jacksonville Jaguars.
I was gonna just that's what I was gonna go to. Well, I'll start with the Jags. The reason why I like them is because I was so wrong. My thought process, we're wrong all the time,
Yeah.
but I'm very disappointed with my thought process behind how I kind of evaled the Jags. March, they were making all these free agent moves. April, taking Walker, who has been fantastic,
Yeah.
and all these things. Since they fired Urban, every single decision that they have made, including all the free agents, the draft picks, the head coach, has been under fire and under question because of the ownership, because of the cons, and because of Trent Baalke, the GM. It's just who they have been and who they are, and it was a fair criticism. But we just blindly said, "Nah, it's the Jags. It's the wrong decision." And every single one has been right. And I think everyone gave Trevor Lawrence a pass for the way he looked under Urban Meyer, and then when Urban was gone, Trevor magically just suddenly looked better with the interim coach. Oh, and then they bring in a former quarterback, an offensive guy who has won a Super Bowl, and oh, he looks amazing. Well, I wonder why.
Who won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles.
Every single decision has worked thus far. Walker looks like a stud. Kirk is making the is worth every penny so far,
Yeah.
and I don't think there's bums on the Jags, but this isn't a good roster, and their defense is top 5 right now. They're playing out of their minds in in both facets of defense. They're running the ball. They fit they because the ETN pick was really, really weird, the pick that Urban made, and Doug Peterson's just making it work because he knows what to do with talent, and I've watched every single snap. They're the only team other than the Bengals, the Jags, are the only team that I've watched on film every single snap this season, and Trevor is night and day compared to last year.
Mhm.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like the quarterback that we expected him to. Like, and people just forget, like, in I this is one of the reasons I like Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow come into this league, and Joe Burrow obviously got hurt his rookie year, but both of them look just exceptional their rookie year. Look seasoned veterans. Because of those 2, people just expect these quarterbacks to come into the league and, like, make it look easy. Playing quarterback in the NFL is not easy. Like, these defenses move a lot faster, the coverage is a lot tighter than in college, and it's just there's a developmental gap that has to be accounted for, and Herbert and Burrow kind of surpassed that very
They
quickly.
they broke the mold, and we're kinda going back with the way Mac has looked, Mac Jones, Justin Fields,
Mhm.
all these guys.
Wilson.
Yeah, and well, we'll see what he does when he comes back. It's year 2 for him. All these guys. Tua starting out. Tua was, like, really behind Herbert and Burrow. He's constantly being compared to them.
Now he
And
looks
here
good.
comes Lawrence, year 2, making that jump. I think he's a top 10 quarterback.
Yeah,
Um,
and I mean, people were like criticizing him last year, the gap between him and the rest of this class now isn't particularly close. So,
Which is really interesting because going back to the 2021 quarterback class, we all liked the fits, maybe except for Fields to Chicago. It was weird that they traded up and got him, but they got him, and they were confident in him. And now that brass, that staff is gone, and it's not working. And we were like, okay, which because we know at least two of them are going to fail, but it was really hard picking out which one of them are going to fail. And at this point, all of them except for one are failing. Trevor is the at this point, Trevor is the only one who's getting a second contract. The other 4
I
have to earn it.
see.
They still have to earn it.
I don't think Mac has been that bad. Like he
He's
had a
not
good
getting a
rookie
second
year.
contract.
He had a
This
good
isn't
rookie
working.
year, but like,
They're boring.
is it all on him though? Like
He's been
he
bad. He has
he
not
doesn't
played.
have great arm talent, but I felt like last year that Josh McDaniels did a really good job of scheming to his strengths, and this year they're not doing a very good job of that. So like,
But they weren't a great offensive team last year.
no, but I felt like Mac with the situation he was in, weapons wise, played pretty well, and
Yeah,
like
I mean, look, say what you want about the Pro Bowl, but he made the Pro Bowl last year.
his,
He
his
was
arm
good,
his arm talent isn't good. His arm talent is not good, and
but
we knew that. But he typically is smart, and if you can scheme the right offense for him, he will make the right decisions. Which, like, listen, what I just described is not winning you a Super Bowl. What I just described is Jared Goff in LA. But like I don't think that he should be taking all the criticism for what's going on in New England right now because a lot of it I think is not his fault.
it's year 2, and I'm thinking 3 years from now, is he gonna be the guy there? I say absolutely not.
Yeah, I
And
think
now
it
that he's
differs.
hurt, like, they could go 5 and 12 and be just
Listen,
awful.
I didn't think they were going to be very good this year.
I mean, they're 10.5 point dogs, and
I actually picked them to finish last in the division this year. So
they're 10.5 point dogs against Green Bay this week.
it's
With
a
or
lot.
without Mac, that is a lot of points. That's like the Bears were 10.5, and this is a team that was first in the AFC at one point last year in the second half of the season for
Yeah, they
multiple
were good
weeks,
last year.
and they're 10.5 point dogs on the road against Green Bay.
Yeah,
I want to go through my tier list for those who haven't seen it. I know you've seen it, but I
yeah,
never really got your full thoughts. So I'm gonna roll through it because I also think it was kind of clever. So my contenders, top of the pack: Bills, Chiefs, Packers, Bucks, Eagles, Ravens. This doesn't really matter because at this point last year, neither the Niners or the Bengals would have been in
right.
this tier, and the Bengals were a minute away from winning the Super Bowl, and the Niners were a dropped pick away from making the Super Bowl. So these are the teams right now that I'd choose to be the contenders, but a lot of this can change. Next, could be worse. Rams and Browns, both teams that have squeaked out wins. Browns against Pittsburgh and Carolina, the Rams against the Falcons and the Cardinals, both against teams that they're better than. So it could be worse, not contenders because they haven't looked good. The Rams are better than the Browns, but they're the top of this tier, almost in contenders, but not quite. Figure it out. Niners, Broncos, Bengals, Chargers, Vikings. These teams all have clear issues that they need to figure out, but they're all healthy in the playoff chase. Some of these teams even could maybe win their division. Surprise! Dolphins, Jags. I'm not running to the table to put the Dolphins the top 5 team. They haven't shown me that they're a top 5 team. They've won 2 close games where they've been outplayed in both back to back weeks. Now, credit to them for winning the games, but not putting them top five.
Real
And
quick,
that's surprise tier. Go ahead.
real quick, just to interrupt you here. Like when it's all said and done, and we get to the playoffs, like you have all these elite quarterbacks in the AFC, like Allen, Mahomes, Burrow, Herbert. Like if Herbert's there, his team is just countless injuries right now. But you have all these elite quarterbacks in the AFC, Lamar Jackson, that are going to be in the playoffs. Like when it's all said and done, or like is like the Dolphins like staff and like Mike McDaniel like that much of a genius where like they can go out and beat these elite quarterbacks, like say like a Kyle Shanahan has done in the past.
Yeah, I don't think Tua didn't beat Josh Allen. He sorta beat Lamar. That was just a really weird game,
And Lamar played well.
but
Like the Dolphins won that game because like the Ravens just decided, hey, like we're up a lot, like let's not cover anybody.
yeah.
So
Dolphins also, after Cincinnati, very easy schedule. So if they go on the road short week, injured Tua with an injured Tua and beat Cincinnati, I don't think they're going to. That would be more impressive. They would, I'll change these tiers every week, change the name of them, but that
mhm,
would certainly be impressive. And then the Jags are also in the surprise exclamation mark tier. And then to round out the top half of the league, how it's one team in this tier. How are you winning without Dak? And it's the Dallas Cowboys in that tier.
yeah.
2-1 in the playoff hunt. Won't win the division because the Eagles are very good. But they're a top half team right now. Very impressed. Awesome defense. I think McCarthy's an idiot, but they're winning in spite of
Putting
him.
it lightly.
Yeah. And then this was I think was pretty creative because all these teams match the mold. They all match. How are you not 0-3? Titans, Patriots, Saints, Steelers, Cardinals, Colts. I think all these teams are 1-2, and
Yeah,
their win is really like
and all of them played 3 losable games.
yeah. I mean, yeah. So that's interesting. Don't buy it. Giants and Bears, same
Yeah.
deal. The Giants didn't win this past week. The Bears did. I don't care. They both were toss-up games. Both got out. Bears didn't really get outplayed.
The Bears have
Yeah.
still I think Justin Fields completed under 10 passes in week 2, but the if he has, like, the Bears have still yet to complete, let's say, like, 12 passes in a game this year. So,
Not this year, sorry. Lions, Panthers, Raiders. Some might say this is a little disrespectful to the Lions. I don't think so.
they
They're
can't
1
stop anybody.
they're 1-2 and can't stop anybody. Like, let's stop catering or coddling to them because they were on Hard Knocks. Like, they were fun. They hit the backdoor cover at home against Philly and then um not and then blew it again against Minnesota. And who they beat? Who do they beat week 2? They beat
So,
someone.
Washington,
They
right?
beat Wa No.
No.
Yes, they did beat Washington.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm right.
Yes, week 2 at home. They beat Washington.
Like, the thing with Detroit is, like, I think they're fun. They're gonna be fun interesting to watch. They're gonna be fun to a lot of casual fans, but, like, this team will probably win 6 or 7 games and hopefully show some signs of improvement.
Yeah. Um Basically 0-3. Commanders and Jets. Commanders should have lost week 1. They should be 0-3.
Just
Jets
for the
are
last week too.
the Jets are, yeah, they're a glorified 0-3. I mean, that against Cleveland was just completely bogus.
See, like, here's the thing, like, I think that they're gonna get like, and I think you agree with me on this too. They're going to get better as the season goes on.
Yeah,
Like,
but they're awful right now, like, awful.
they have a lot of new pieces on defense that are getting used to playing that system, and like the corners that they brought in that they thought were going to be really good have been really good. So like, let's see like pass rush starts to get home. They start to play better. They get Zach Wilson back. Like get like all of their young pieces that like they have been hopeful about, like, have looked good. Like Garrett Wilson has been good. Sauce Gardner's been good. I believe Jermaine Johnson's played pretty well the first couple weeks as well. So like it's been encouraging. They're just not there yet.
Yeah. And then lastly, the Stroud zone. Texans, Falcons, Seahawks. I doubt the name of this tier will change throughout the season. These teams, one of them I think is gonna get CJ Stroud when
Yeah,
it's all said and done.
even though if I was in charge of this, it'd be called the Young Zone. But
I love Bryce Young, but gotta be a realist.
no,
Stroud is
I personally will end up having Young as my number one quarterback prospect. But teams will like Stroud better. He throws a better football. Simply,
all right. Let's go through week 4 just a little bit. Another pod coming out. Sam Richmond's coming back on Friday. We're gonna talk about some gambling. We are on absolute fire. We don't talk about our picks, but we've been on the same side like every single week, and we're just fucking killing it.
yeah.
So looking forward to that. Some I don't these is not gonna be my whole card. I normally bet on every game, and this week's hard. Do have some looks though. I'm gonna ride with Houston. Um, this is a weird spot. It's a weird angle because we all know the Chargers are good, but their their team, there's no good players that are healthy. I mean, the only good player that's healthy is who? Mike Williams and Derwin James. That's it. This is an all-star roster,
Is
but they don't
Asante
have
Samuel healthy?
yeah, he's good. Their roster's amazing, but where is it?
Yeah.
Um, so they lost a tough one. Bunch of guys recently got injured in addition to all the new guys getting injured. Go on the road facing a frisky team that can move the ball. The Chargers can't stop the run or run the ball. So they can't take control of a game because you're not going to send Herbert back there 45 times on 3 broken ribs and try to win the game that way. You can't. They have to try to run the ball at this point, and they can't. They have no running game. They
Yeah.
can't stop the run. Right now, what did I get Houston at? 4.5. I think it's at 5 right now. I took the 4.5 and I took the money line. I just think value wise, just the Chargers are not a team I want to back right now, home or road, and they're laying almost a touchdown against a team that kind of matches up well with them. I don't. It's not panic mode for the Chargers, but they do lose this game. There's some issues.
I'm not saying that I'm not saying that they're going to miss the playoffs because it's 3 weeks into the year, but if you start 1-3 with 2 losses to AFC South teams, that puts you in a really bad spot.
I just think it's really easy for everyone to say, "Oh my God, the Chargers won't lose to a bad team twice." First of all, the Jags aren't a bad team.
Yeah, I mean,
They
like,
won't
that's, like,
they won't
basically
have another letdown 2 weeks in a row. It's a must-win game they have to win, but we've seen NFL teams countless
yeah, I
times
mean, like,
lose
you pretty much gave, like, a what every casual NFL fan's analysis of this game would be. Like, the
they
Chargers c the
they
Jaguars
can't
are
lose.
good, the
They
Chargers
can't
can't lose
lose,
to a bad team.
so they're gonna win, and that's not how it works. It's the talent gap's not big enough, and it sure as hell is not big enough in this game with all the talent that the Chargers are missing.
There's no injured player theory when 5 of your 7 best players are hurt.
There is no injured players theory. It's just the injured player theory.
Yeah, 1, singular.
Cardinals, Carolina. If I had to give a spot of the week, which I might start doing, because it's a very spot-based league, this is it for Arizona.
Carolina's terrible.
Carolina's really bad. Now they play good defense, but I hit on them outright +3 against the Saints. This isn't a spot where they turn it around and beat a dynamic quarterback.
Mhm.
This is a spot for Arizona to go on the road, and just put up some points.
Yeah.
Have a complete game. Now, the way they've started has been dreadful this season, but this is the worst team they faced. They go on
Mhm.
the road, don't really care about that. Um, Low total, 42. I like that with the better offense, because look, I get Carolina's gonna stop them, but you can't stop them the whole game. They'll pick it up. There is talent still on that team. I believe more might go, hopefully, maybe, but, I took the Cardinals outright. This is a really good spot. I still have their under win total at 8.5 that I feel really good about,
Mhm.
but they lost the Chiefs game, I expected them to. I would have predicted them to split Raiders and Rams. They did, and then I would have had them winning this game, as a favorite. That's kinda crazy that, before the season, I think the look ahead line here was like 4 or 4.5 in the Cardinals' favor. It's a lot. It's almost a touchdown swing just because of how bad the Cardinals have looked this season. So I love that spot as a plus money dog for Arizona.
Mhm.
And then I also like this spot for Denver. I haven't bet it yet, but there is a trend for Vegas that 0-3 teams are like 63% against the spread. I don't really care about that. This Vegas team they have some issues. So I'm gonna look to find a way to back Denver there. Um, I think Denver's the better team, and they're getting a field goal here. Um, this week's really hard. Cleveland, that's who else. Um, another really good
I was
spot.
about to mention that one.
Another really good spot for Cleveland. I also love the Saints. I haven't bet that yet. I think that the Saints are gonna completely run right through Minnesota, win by double digits, and be like, "Okay, we're still good. We love Dennis Allen. We're still good." And then it's kinda panic mode for Minnesota. This isn't I don't think it's a spot where Minnesota's just gonna kinda figure it out on defense because they have active defensive problems and a very good offense going up the number 1 or number 2 best defense in the NFL in New Orleans. But Cleveland, better team. They go on the road, don't really care. There is a historic trend here back in Cleveland. Um, Atlanta won their first game, then
Yeah.
they won the first game on the road, feeling really good. Going home, it is a long-term fade on that team. Don't have the numbers with me, but it is a spot for
Also,
Cleveland.
Atlanta's just, like, bad. Like, they're not
Yeah,
a good football team.
yeah,
And, like, as much as, like, people, like to paint this narrative about Cleveland that, like, "Oh, they need to survive until Watson gets back," which I actually said last week, but, like, Jacoby Brissett's been playing very good football.
yes, he's been, I think he's, like, in the top 10 in QB, DVOA. He's looked really good.
Mhm.
So, Friday, we'll release all the
Yeah,
bets, full card. We went 15 and 3 this past week. We hit every primetime game except for the Sunday game. We didn't bet on that. We took a little victory lap. Back at it. Cowboys money line outright. Monday
yeah.
night. Very good stuff. And John, you have tailed everything. You're gonna tail all these down. Are you gonna tail Texans money line?
I already put it down.
There you go. Oh, and then I see the Niners. I also have the Niners down there. They're better than the Rams, right? Just at
I
this
I have
point.
put down everything that's on the banner right now.
Yep. All right, John. We'll talk to you next week.